Hey everybody, it's Bridget Murphy back again with my husband Ray Murphy and our trainer Sierra, and we are here to talk to you about crate training today. So Sierra, let's get started. Why is crate training important for dogs?
So I think the first and foremost biggest benefit to crate training is just in general teaching your dog how to be okay on their own. There are a lot of times throughout your dog's life where they're going to have to be comfortable on their own. Like, we unfortunately cannot be home 24/7. And, I don't think any of us want to be stuck at home 24/7 or not be able to take a vacation or not be able to go to the grocery store and like have anxiety about what our dog is doing at home, right? So I think just the main thing or the biggest pro to crate training is, eliminating separation anxiety and knowing that your dog is in a safe place when you're not there to supervise your dog. There are so many stories that I can tell about dogs, hurting themselves, harming their environment because they're just not in a crate and their owner, either refuses to crate train them or, views the crate as this horrible negative thing when in reality, if they properly introduce that crate at a young age or really whenever throughout the dog's lifetime, they would be able to avoid all of those really, horrible things that could potentially happen. So separation anxiety is the big one for sure.
Yeah, and the other important thing to remember too is if your dog ever has to stay overnight at a vet, they are going to be in a crate. I do want to ask a question right away because if you go online, a lot of times people people are marketing crate-free, doggy daycare or whatever, crate-free training and all of that other stuff. Why is that a bad idea?
I mean, well, first of all, we can touch on the daycare situation. I'm not like a huge fan of doggy daycare to begin with. Most of, and I say most, maybe I shouldn't be so judgmental, but a lot of the places that I have experienced through clients of mine, most of the employees that daycare places hire are not really suited to 100% manage groups of dogs. They don't truly understand body language. They don't understand how to break up a dog fight if that were to happen. I have horror stories of daycares putting, like a ridiculous amount of dogs together in a group and then, very bad things happen or just not understanding how to put dogs together that fit well together to play. So that's kind of one thing about daycare. But having a crate-free daycare environment or boarding facility, like how do you manage, 20, 30, 40 dogs with no separation for hours on end? Like, I first don't think that's healthy for the dogs, like, especially if you have a dog that is just like all up in another dog's business and won't ever leave that other dog alone, right? Like, that's going to create some sort of, issue if one dog wants to be left alone and you have another really, high energy dog that just constantly wants to play. Like, that lower energy dog that wants to be left alone is going to get annoyed. That's going to cause issues. So being able to separate dogs in those environments and providing a safe place for all of these dogs in that type of environment to truly rest and relax and decompress is so important. When dogs get overly tired, I mean, they're like a toddler. Like, like, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and like when she gets tired, like everything is the end of the world. Like, it's just like, it could be okay, like it's time to put your shoes on, and it's like a meltdown for 5 minutes because she's overly tired. So having your dog feel safe and comfortable in a crate is kind of like having your toddler be safe and comfortable in their bed and being able to take a nap, to decompress and get their mind right so they can then process information clearly and actually understand what you're asking them to do. So not having a crate or not having any sort of separate space in an environment with multiple dogs where you're really just like allowing them to play and have zero structure all day long is going to end poorly no matter what, regardless of how well trained the dogs are or how well behaved or social they are. Like, one dog or multiple dogs will eventually get annoyed and something will happen. So having a way of separating, I think, in that type of environment is super important.
Yeah, and then think about too, like in a boarding situation, if your dog is left somewhere overnight and not
Yeah.
crated, and something happens, an emergency happens, your dog.
Right.
I mean, that is just it's a recipe for disaster, and it blows my mind for facilities like that.
Most of these boarding facilities, like if it's a true boarding facility and not like how we board, like we board, you know, in our trainers' homes, you know, on our properties. So, but even then, like every dog is going to have a different temperament. Like right now, I have dogs in my care that are dog aggressive, human aggressive, leash reactive, and have severe separation anxiety. Like I have a whole entire, you know, group of dogs that I would never ever be able to trust loose in a room together overnight. And most of those boarding facilities don't have 24/7 supervision. Like they might have cameras on their play areas and their boarding areas, but most of the time somebody is not there overnight. So like God forbid a fight breaks out overnight and like nobody's there to help. It's just like, you know, fight to the death situation, and that's, you know, obviously not going to be a fun thing to walk into the next morning. So, you know, having every single dog, you know, at least the owners know if they are crated or put in separate rooms and they each have their own space, at least the owners know that my dog is going to be, you know, safe, secure, and alive the following day.
So you hear a lot of stories of dogs that are, they call them the Houdinis, the ones that can escape out of crates. Like, so what are your considerations when you're selecting a crate for a dog, especially a dog that's got a known history of escape?
So I actually just left a session with a client who they have a 10-year-old German Shepherd, and they were like, we tried crate training him as a puppy, but he escaped from like 2 or 3 crates that we got. We spent all of this money and we were just over it. So like the dog has never been crate trained. The dog has like the worst anxiety I've ever seen in my life, and they can't go anywhere. So I told them today, you know, you need to get a crate that your dog cannot escape from, because, you know, a lot of people think like, you know, just a wire crate or like a plastic travel crate is going to be, you know, a good enough space for their dog, you know, and when in reality, especially when you're already dealing with separation anxiety or, you know, barrier aggression or any type of behavioral concern, you have to select a crate that is going to be well made, sturdy, and, you know, escape proof. So I select Roughlin crates or impact crates. Those are kind of my 2 go-tos. I've got all Roughlins for my board and trains, along with 2 impact crates for dogs that have higher levels of anxiety. I work with a lot of dogs and dogs that have severe anxiety and aggression issues, and I have never had a dog in my care break out of a Roughlin or an impact crate. Like they're literally impossible to break out of. I'm sure there are stories out there of dogs getting out of these types of crates, but I've had hundreds of dogs go through, you know, Roughlin crates and impact crates and never had a single negative experience with either of those brands. So, you know, those are kind of my 2 go-tos. There are a few other brands out there that are similar quality to those. I think one is like Rock Creek crates, and then Gunner crates are also really high quality. So I would just select a crate that is higher quality. yes, you are going to spend more money on that, but you're not going to have to continue to spend money on replacing crates. And you're not allowing your dog to reinforce escaping, therefore they're going to stop trying. Because if every single time they try, they fail, they're not going to be as inclined to continue to try. Whereas like if you just put them in a wire crate or like a travel crate and they break out, 20 minutes after they've been in there, every single time you put them in there, they're going to be like, let's go, it's time to party and destroy this crate now. So you have to select, a durable, high quality, well-made crate. Even if it costs a little bit more at first, you're going to be spending a lot less in the long run. And making sure your dog is safe. Like, dogs have broken teeth, broken nails breaking out of crates. So it's not only for your dog's safety and security, but also knowing that they're not going to like completely destroy their mouth trying to break out of a wire crate.
Yeah. So when you get a rescue dog or a new puppy coming home, I mean, I know this is kind of a detailed question, but
yeah,
could you kind of outline what it looks like? What's the process to get a dog comfortable who came from an environment where they weren't crated and now they're being taught to live in a crate? And of course, the biggest pushback we get from owners is they cry or they bark and they won't stop when they're in the crate, and I can't sleep. So how do we turn that corner with them to get these dogs to kind of relax in there and be quiet? And what tips do you have, to do that?
So I think you first have to address whether or not that, rescue dog or new dog to your life is going to be a threat to themselves or the environment. So I think that's a really good thing to establish first before, considering, the whole how to introduce the crate, because there is a slow way of introducing the crate to make it a super positive environment with, no negative experience. And then there is you are a threat to yourself or the environment and you have to be crated. So I think there are two different ways of tackling that question. So the first way, like if the dog is just like, whatever, never been in a crate, but it's just going to like sleep on the couch all day, I'm going to go about crate training that dog slightly differently than a dog that is trying to eat through my front door. Right? So the dog that wants to sleep on the couch all day, I'm going to play like fun crate games with the dog. I'm going to throw food in and let the dog go in and come out and go in and go out. And the crate is going to become this like really cool space that like feeds itself, right? Like the crate is what feeds you now. So putting in lots of high value treats, bully sticks, Kongs filled with peanut butter, frozen with their food or whatever to keep them kind of occupied. You could do like a snuffle mat or like a rolled up towel with kibble sprinkled in it, and they have to kind of like unravel the towel to find all of their food in there. So that would be like the slow way, right? Like getting the dog to really want to be in the kennel because it is now their, number one source of food. So that could take, a few days to a week to get the dog comfortable going in and out. And then you can slowly start to, close the door and throw treats in while they're in there while you're still in the room. And then you can build your way up to, having them in there and walking around the house and intermittently dropping some treats in while they're being quiet and then letting them out. So showing them that I am going to come back and let you out. You just have to be patient, but that time will come. So that would be the first way of introducing to a dog that has never been in a crate, who is not a danger to itself or its environment. Now, on the flip side, a dog, like let's say you get a dog from a rescue or the pound, it's never been in a crate. Or it's only ever been in a kennel run, at the Humane Society or whatever, and you get the dog home, day one, you leave for work, you come home and your house is absolutely destroyed. The dog ate your couch, scratched all of the doors, tried to eat a windowsill, whatever it may be. That dog, for its own safety, has to be put in a crate. So that dog, you're going to, kind of just have to make go in the crate, again, a high quality, durable crate, and you're going to just have to work them through it, as quickly as possible. They may, obviously feel some stress those first couple of days, but a dog that is actively trying to, harm themselves or the environment, there's not really another option. Like, it's kind of hard to slowly crate train that dog unless you're gonna just like be home for a whole week. Like, if you're willing to take a whole week off of work and do it slowly and not go anywhere, great, that's amazing. But most people don't have time or the patience to do it that way. So if in the event that someone did rescue a dog like that, and they didn't have the time or the effort to put in, finding a really solid board and train program may be really beneficial for the dog to work through that anxiety. If they're not willing to kind of deal with that stress level of the dog, we are trained to deal with those things. We do it on a daily basis. So it's not as hard for us to ignore the barking and the whining as it is an owner. So that may be an option if it is, a really big struggle with that type of dog and you can't do the slow route.
Yeah,
Have you
I think
ever tried using music, get the dogs to calm down, like classical music?
So we have like a building on our property where all of our dogs stay. We have a sound machine that we keep in there. I've never done music, but we do have a sound machine. I don't really know if it works. I've had lots of trainers, put fans in front of crates. That's, kind of the same thing as white noise. I've had lots of clients say that they leave on like, classical music or the TV for their dog or whatever. And like, I don't know. To me, I think a dog should be able to relax, whether there is noise or silence in the environment. I think if you're constantly trying to entertain your dog, you're kind of defeating the purpose of crate training to begin with. Like, you're putting your dog in the crate to teach them how to relax and completely shut off their brain to decompress. So if you're constantly entertaining your dog, or there's constantly noise or something that is prohibiting your dog from truly relaxing, I think it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah, it's funny. We talked to Ashley Nunez about this. It's the fine art of doing nothing. And I think
Yes.
far away from doing that with our dogs, so many people overstimulate constantly because they think a tired dog is a good dog, when really it's, that is not what we want. We want the fine art of doing nothing. Let's talk a little bit more about maybe some troubleshooting. I do think for owners out there, I think when you get a dog, ideally, it would be nice to have this, basic obedience, recall, and crate training should be some of your top things. And, obviously the rules and structure in the home. But as we know, that doesn't always happen. And so what are some troubleshooting tips? We kind of started going down this road with the difficult crate dog. Let's talk about maybe changing up crates, maybe exercise pens, that kind of stuff. What would be some different things that owners can try to troubleshoot?
So troubleshooting, I mean, one of the big things that I do when I have a really high-strung, anxious dog that I have to work on crate training with, I first, obviously that dog over the course of the board and train has to be in the crate. It's sleeping in the crate. But during the day, like, I've got some larger kennel runs that are outside that I can put dogs in to give them a little bit more space and really help them decompress so they're not just in a crate all day. But that's still a confined area, right? So you're giving them a larger confined area where they still can't, harm themselves or the environment by breaking out of it because it's a secure space. But you're giving them a little bit of relief from the actual crate, right? So you could do, a larger kennel run or playpen area outside of the house or in the house if you have the space, to kind of introduce that confinement to that type of dog. But one of the things that I really like to do with dogs is teach them a proper, what I call a crate settle. So what I do is I first work on teaching them a down. So the dog, the kind of a prerequisite to this crate settle is the dog understanding a down command. And so I would put the dog in a down in their crate and tether them with a leash in their crate. So if they stand up, they have no option but to lay back down. Or, I mean, they could stand in there, but they're eventually going to lay back down because there's not an option of coming out of the crate. So we want the dog to learn how to just relax in the crate. I always take the doors off of my crates when I'm doing a crate settle. So it's not 100% confined because the door is off, but we're teaching that dog that you can just lay in your crate and do nothing. I'm not going to necessarily give you anything to chew on or, entertain yourself with, because again, that's not the purpose of the crate, is to continue with that entertainment. You're teaching the dog to relax and do nothing. So, tethering the dog in the crate and having your dog work on holding it down is super, that works very well if you're struggling with just the crate itself. So you can work on that. Another thing that I'll do kind of in addition to the crate settle, I have these treat machines. It's called a treat and train. You put their kibble in the machine and you can press a button and it will, it'll dispense food for the dog. So anytime that I'm dealing with a dog with anxiety, I'll put that treat machine in there with them while they're doing that crate settle. And anytime I see them just like put their head down or kind of like turn onto their hips and they start to show that they're relaxing, I'll dispense some food, from a distance, while I'm working with another dog or whatever. I'm not standing directly in front of them. And so we really want to start showing the dog that their behavior is what is making that food, dispense, right? So their behavior is creating that motivation of the food coming out. So they'll be more inclined to continue to do that behavior if we're reinforcing with something, positive or motivating to that dog. So incorporating something like that can be very helpful. But I would not do that with the door closed. That's something that I would only really do, if I was in the room to make sure that the dog wasn't trying to eat through my treat machine. Because if you have a super food motivated dog, they're going to know food's in there and they're going to try to figure out how to get it all. So that's another really good way of teaching that crate settle and having a way of reinforcing your dog from a distance and really teaching them that you can settle when I'm not standing directly next to you.
So how do you use a crate specifically for crate training when you've got a brand new puppy? The poop and pee machines and trying to get that timing down. But what's the importance of using a crate in that scenario?
So I think crate training and potty training go hand in hand. I don't think you can really potty train a dog without a crate. I'm sure there are lots of people that have done that, but I also don't have, 24 hours, 7 days a week to keep my eyes on a puppy. So, and most people don't either. Most people are working, most people have lives and are going to the grocery store, or going, to do things outside of the house. So, utilizing, first of all, a properly sized crate for your puppy is super important. A lot of people will buy these massive mansions of crates for their little 4-pound puppies. And then they're like, my puppy is peeing and pooping in this crate and then sleeping on the other side. So you have to first get a crate that your dog can't do that in. So we want it to be the proper size for the dog to begin with. So really just big enough for that puppy to walk in, stand up, turn around, and lay down. Because at the end of the day, we're using the crate to teach the dog to relax. Excuse me. So getting a properly sized crate is first. Second, if we're just talking about puppies, we're going to be doing a lot of positive reinforcement. So, feeding them in the crate. I like to do, I think everyone probably calls it this, scatter feeding. So I'll just throw their food in onto the crate floor, and then they can, search for their food on the crate floor. and they eat their meals that way. They're going to be less inclined to pee or poop in that space if their food is coming from it, right? So that's kind of one other thing that you can do with a puppy. And then when it comes to, kind of setting a schedule and timing for potty training for a puppy, I generally recommend during the day setting a schedule that makes sense for you, and then trying to be consistent and follow that schedule. So if you are going to wake up at 7 a.m., kind of get yourself ready, take your puppy out, 7:15, give them, 5 or 6 minutes to sniff around and relieve themselves. If they don't go potty, then they go straight back to the crate. There's not an option of not going potty and then getting a bunch of freedom in the house, because they're most likely going to have an accident. So we want to prevent them from having an accident by putting them back in that small space. And then, 10, 15, 20 minutes later, or if the dog starts whining or barking, after a while, you go back and you take that puppy back outside for 5 or 6 minutes. Let them sniff around. If they go potty, then they get free time. We celebrate, right? Yay, good potty, you did it. Reinforce what they did. And then they get to come inside and play with their toys and play fetch and run around and snuggle with you. But doing all of those fun, free things is not an option until they've gone potty. So they'll see very quickly and learn very quickly that as soon as I go to the bathroom, I get to do all of these really cool, fun things with you. And they're going to want to go more quickly. And that will be a really good way of not only reinforcing the potty, but also, teaching them to go more quickly, because they're going to want to come back in and do all of those fun things. So that's generally what I recommend when you're potty training a puppy. It's just, if they don't go within 5 or 6 minutes of being outside, they go back into the crate for, 15, 20 minutes, and then you're giving another opportunity and just repeating that until they go. So that's kind of my standard potty training with the crate method. Now, I recently had a dog, a puppy. She came to me at 13 weeks old. She's a little miniature beagle, and that method did not work for her. So I'm not saying that works for every dog, because this little puppy definitely gave me a run for my money. But so we ended up having to do something that I have never done with a puppy before, which is totally fine, because there are a million ways to get to the end result. So for that puppy, she just didn't, first of all, she was from a puppy mill. So not a great start to her life as far as, properly being, whelped and raised in an environment where the breeder was, promoting going potty outside. Basically, this dog was just in like a 4x4 little playpen with like 12 of its litter mates on a bunch of potty pads, like stepping all over its pee and poop all day long. So that puppy from, probably 3-4 weeks old was taught poop and pee where you play and sleep. So we were kind of already off on the wrong foot to begin with there. So that was a struggle to really get the dog to not want to relieve itself where it was spending the majority of its time or sleeping. So what I ended up doing with that dog was getting a playpen. Thankfully, it's a really nice time of year here. It's not super hot. So she spent the majority of her day outside in a playpen with a nice cozy bed on one side and grass on the other side. So we were teaching her that she had the option of not relieving herself where she slept or where she could sleep. So she had the option of going in the grass and then going back to the other side of that playpen to sleep, or relax or play or whatever. And so we kind of created that division in her brain that she was not taught, or how she should have been taught from a very young age. So that took quite some time to get her to kind of rewire her brain and understand that, you don't have to be dirty. Like, you don't have to be disgusting all of the time. So that was, that's one other way if you're really struggling with a dog who just doesn't seem to care that they're covered in their own potty, or they're really struggling with just constantly going in the crate. It could be a similar situation to that dog where they were just not properly introduced, with the litter, with their mom, in that, first 8 weeks of life. So there are some dogs that are just kind of naturally gross and they don't care if they're dirty, but most dogs will not pee or poop where they have to sleep or eat. So having that separation, is definitely something that will help.
Awesome. And this is really good information. I mean, there is one thing I am curious about, since a lot of humans, have this kind of aversion to crates because they think it's cruel or whatever. So what do you tell an owner or somebody, who's kind of really against it just because they don't like the optics and think that they're putting their dog in doggy jail and they feel bad themselves? Like, how do you explain to them, what it's doing to the dog by having no boundaries?
Well, that can be a challenging conversation with clients. It's one that I've had to have many, many times. The first thing that I kind of always bring up in that conversation is that we have to do our best to leave our emotions out of training. Because dogs do not think or process information the same way that humans do. So, we can't be throwing all of our human emotions on our dogs and thinking that they are, my human is abandoning me because I'm going in a kennel for 2 hours while they go to the gym. Like, your dog's not thinking that. Like, I think the most important thing, and I said this kind of at first, was, providing your dog with a safe and secure environment over allowing them to harm themselves or their environment is going to be more beneficial for your dog than just having, 100% freedom. So, like, for example, I saw a video a few weeks ago of a dog that was loose in the house, who had been probably loose in the house its entire life. And this dog, they had a camera in their house, like, so they could probably check on their dog. So this may have not been the first bad thing the dog had done, but the dog found like a lithium battery or something and was chewing on it in the living room, and it set the house on fire. Like, literally, the dog set the house on fire. And like that could have been prevented if the dog was just in a crate. So, like, I had another client in San Francisco who lived in it was like a duplex or kind of thing with like 3 stories. They lived on the 2nd floor. And they adopted this dog. The foster, whoever they got this dog from, was like, the dog cannot go in a crate. Like, it's a super anxious dog. Well, they had this dog for like a week at this point, and like, they had been home. This was during COVID, so like, everyone was home working. The first time they left their house, the dog tried to break through their 2nd floor window and jump out the window to follow them. So like, there are insane things that dogs will try to do if they are feeling, anxious or something, and just putting your dog in a kennel can literally save their life, or, save your house from being burned down. I think the bigger picture that clients and people who are a little bit more, stressed out about the crate than their dog probably is, need to understand is that at the end of the day, having your dog in a crate while you're not home to supervise them can save their life. Like, if that person's house caught on fire and their dog was in a crate and the firemen come to put the fire out, at least you can say, my dog is safe in a crate in my bedroom. Please go get the crate out of my bedroom. But if your dog is loose in your house, the first thing they're going to do in that sort of stressful situation is hide or try to run away. or get aggressive if some random people are trying to come in your house with all of these, hoses or something trying to save you. Had another client reach out to me, and they were like, she has a heart condition, and she had to call an ambulance because she, was having issues, and she knew that she needed to go, to the emergency room. And she has this like little 8-pound chihuahua, like easily just like throw it in a kennel, like close the door. But like EMS had to come to her house, and they're coming through the door, and this little dog's like literally attacking them, like biting their feet, biting their ankles, like. And like, she's like, I don't know what to do with this dog. And I'm like, just put it in a kennel. Like, that solves your problem. Like we don't need to spend, thousands of dollars on training for this little 8-pound dog specifically, to keep these people who are trying to help you safe, right? So there are so many situations that I can think of, and that I've, had to talk owners through, where the crate can, either help save their life, or, help keep other people safe that are entering a household. So it's a hard conversation, and there are obviously going to be some people who will never crate their dogs, even if they are destroying their house or going pee or poop all over the house. There are some people that, unfortunately, we just can't get through to. But when your dog is properly introduced to a crate, they do view that space as a very safe space. Like, I know my dogs, they have the option of going in their crates whenever they want. Like, the doors are just left open. And like, my older dog Moose will just, like, if he's stressed out for some reason, like if there's a lot going on and he's like, okay, I'm over this, like I don't want to be a part of it, he'll just walk into his crate and lay down. Like, he knows that space is his. Nobody's going to bother him in there, and it's just his space to decompress and relax. So if it's introduced properly, your dog will view it as a space where they can go and be safe and really decompress and relax. It may take some time to get to that point if the crate was, improperly introduced at a young age, or the dog was never introduced to a crate until an older age. But there is not an age limit on crate training. You can teach an old dog new tricks, right? And the crate can definitely be one of those tricks. You just have to, kind of persevere through those first, rough few days, and not let the whining or any of that stuff get to you. But, having a proper crate, a properly sized crate, and a durable crate are super important.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of really great topics. My dog, like yours, Cairo, he's older now. He's 9 going on 10, and he's got the option at night. If he wants to sleep in his crate, he can sleep in his crate. If not, he can sleep in bed. And, 9 times out of 10, he goes to his crate instead of sleeping in bed with us. So, and before I put him in at night, this is probably too much information. I've got my little crate song that I sing to him, so he goes running into his crate. But it's, I've trained it as a game, and he loves it. So I really want people to understand crates are not doggy jail. Your dog doesn't look at these things like they are doggy jail. I completely understand why people might think that, but it's important to understand when it's used properly, when it's introduced properly, it is not a punishment device. As Sierra kept saying, it is a place to keep your dog safe, secure. They love it when it's introduced properly. I think we've given everybody a lot of really good high-level tips and tricks. There's obviously some more stuff to discuss as far as, training strategy, but it's outside of the scope of this YouTube video for sure. I think we could probably touch on it next time in another topic if we wanted to get pretty specific on how to introduce crates, excuse me. But for now, Sierra, this was great. Thank you again. We want you back on, as always. You've always give us such great content. But for all of you out there, be sure to take a peek at our website, koruk9.com. And of course, you can follow us on all our social media platforms at Koru K9 on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we'll be back again soon with a lot more dog training information.